Welcome to the Lee Michaels Show with Carol and your daily cast of characters, where we discuss the issues of the day, entertainment news, what's really going on in Washington, and the world. Why don't we just hear it from the horse's mouth himself?
We can't have someone in the Oval Office who doesn't understand the meaning of the word confidential or classified. I don't think it's safe to be briefed on national security because the word will get out. I know at some point they're going to want to brief me, but I'm not a talker about this stuff. This is like Watergate, only it's worse. Because here, our foreign enemies were in a position to hack our most sensitive national security secrets.
Of course, it turns out the Russians didn't need to hack Hillary's email server. They were able to hack Trump's mouth.
This is like Watergate, only it's worse.
You're right about one damn
The Lee
thing.
Michaels Show on the Power of Voices Radio Network.
And good morning and hello world. Welcome to the Lee Michaels Show with Carol, Chris Bass, you, Alpha, and occasionally Apollo when he's not out chasing the massage parlor girls. He's a character. Welcome to the show. It's going to be another great day in the world, right? We're going to make it that way. We're not going to just sit around and do nothing. We're going to make it happen. Big day in Georgia. Special election going on down there. Democrat versus a Republican, and the race is neck and neck. It's very tight, they're saying. So we'll see what happens there. We'll keep you informed if any breaking news comes out of Georgia on that. And, it's going to be a test to see if the Republicans still have momentum, even in the red zone. Now, from what I understand about this particular race, it is not a predominantly Democratic area. So for the race to be this tight, and they have spent $50 million campaigning. $50 million. Both. I mean, a combination of the two, the Democrats and the Republicans.
Isn't it in Atlanta where they're voting?
I don't know if it's right in Atlanta. I'm not sure.
I asked my sister. I told her, I hope you're all voting.
Yeah, but it's in Georgia. But $50 million between the two parties, about $25 million each. That's a lot of dough. Wow. How you doing, Carol?
I'm good.
Weren't sure if you were going to be here today.
I know. I got canceled because I took fish oil vitamins in Naposon. And they can't do the procedure if that's in you.
Oh, okay. Well.
So I was up most of the night.
Yeah, you were tripping.
No, I wasn't tripping. Believe me, I was not tripping.
You were tripping. You were psyching yourself all out.
No, I had already taken some of those pills. The one with me, my doctor, you have to take pills and drink that stuff. So I had taken the pills already.
Oh, boy. Well, Chris, are you there?
Yes, boom shakalaka. How you doing?
All right, pretty good. We have a special guest in the studio today. We'll get to him in just a second. He's sitting here, sun-shining faces and all happy and everything. So we'll find out what his story is. Bernard Cooper.
Secret guest.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wasn't secret anymore. Okay.
No, the secret is out.
There you go.
So now this race down in Georgia, what do you know about it? Have you been following this?
Yeah, it's Georgia's 6th congressional district. And it's the races between Republican Karen Handel and Democrat Joel Ossoff. The district has not had Democratic representation since 1979.
Wow.
It's been that long, yeah.
So it's a pretty red area.
Correct, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So,
now, doesn't
like
it speak volume that it's a tight race?
Oh, yeah. It's a tight race because, once again, I think certain Republicans are not on board with Trump.
Yeah.
And they're going to send a message, and I hope so, because I think that's going to be the real pushback, not from, of course, the opposite of the Democrats, that's obvious, but the people within the party who are disgruntled, did not want him on board in the first place, did not care for his politics. They're going to push back in their way, and I hope they do it through this one election in Georgia, because I think it speaks volumes, because that may be the galvanization of the other votes and the other elections down the road.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, he's 30 years old.
Yeah, he's young.
that's great.
First
So he
time
might
candidate,
pull
30
in
years
the
old.
younger people, the millenniums.
So he's never
That's true,
held
too,
a
yeah.
public office before?
I heard.
It says here he has youth and relative inexperience, but the thing with healthcare and campaign of financial reform have become major issues in the district. He's been galvanizing that.
Smart man. Now, I heard it's been a real nasty race on behalf of the Republicans in some of the ads and what have you they've been running. And they even took some excerpts from some things that Obama had said in other speeches and parts from his book that he did about his father. And he was reading excerpts from that, and they took that excerpt
Right.
and turned it into a negative campaign ad. And I mean, it's just, and the context is not even about this campaign. He was reading a story about his dad. So,
Right, of
I mean,
course.
all kind of nasty stuff is going on. And these guys will do anything to win. And with that, let's bring in Alfo, because I'm sure he has something to say about this race.
Well, Lee, how you doing?
Good, man.
Carol, Chris, and to
Hey, how
your
you doing?
secret guest. Ossoff has a very slight chance of winning. The vote has been so, I would say, violated. They've purged over, in this particular one, they've purged over 80,000 votes from minorities. If Ossoff wins, it would be because so many white people are so against what the Republicans did on this health care bill. No, a Democrat hasn't held that seat for a while, and that speaks volumes as to how angry they are about this health care bill.
Right.
But what is so astonishing about this is that this voter suppression, I would say this election fraud, continues to go on. Lee, I put the story on your Facebook page about the Georgia election. Handel used to be the Secretary of State, and she's one of the ones that implemented the cross-check. If Ossoff wins this, the Republicans will be running for the exits, period.
Yeah. Well,
Aren't they voting in South Carolina soon, too?
I'm not familiar
Yes.
with that.
They are, huh?
They're voting, they're voting somewhere down there.
Is that
It's
another
always a
special election?
something. Right.
Okay.
It's always a special something.
Oh, cut off there, Alfo. Okay, he muted his mic.
I'm here. I'm
okay.
here.
Well, I'll say this. This is going to be a very important outcome. If the Democrat wins, that's going to send a shockwave through the Republican Party. And they've spent $25 million each party in this race. $25 million. And this is for a House seat or a Senate seat?
House seat.
House seat. That's got to be the
And it's
most
only until-
expensive race ever.
And it's only until 2018 because they got to do it
Do it again. Right.
for 2018.
That's amazing. Unbelievable. So if we are willing to spend, and I say we, because we support these candidates by sending money into their campaign. So $50 million between the two parties for one House seat that's good for 2 years. Is it that important? The answer is yes.
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely.
The answer is yes. So the ripple effect from this, the echo effect from this, every seat, every House seat, every Senate seat is worth tens of millions of dollars in campaigning. And that just shows you how serious both sides are about winning. And that's scary. That's really kind of frightening. But the game is on.
Well, I don't know how committed Democrats are to winning. They are still fighting on the wrong battlefield. They still can't get their messaging together. It's that simple. It's pathetic. You see where the briefing, the daily briefing, was no audio and no video.
Yeah, that should be against the law. I mean, how can they possibly do that and get away with it?
Because it's his administration and they dictate it, and there are no ground rules, and there never has been ground rules. You can wink and nod and have an agreement, but if you don't spell out what rights the First Amendment has, that should be the ad.
Well,
Donald Trump is taking your First Amendment rights. Can your Second Amendment rights be far behind? That's the ad.
Well, that's my point. How can they possibly get away with not allowing media to record, broadcast, video a press conference? That's a cover-up.
They do it. They do it in Russia.
Well, yeah, but this is not Russia. We can't let them get away with that.
Why isn't it? Look, they don't have to have a daily press briefing. And if it's not on their terms, they won't have one.
Well, if they legally don't have to have one, then don't do them. But don't do it and then dictate to the media that, well, you can't video this, you can't record it, can't record the audio. You know, they're just. Why would they want to do that? Because they're trying to cover up something.
Lee. I agree with you, but they do it because the media continues to grovel at their heels for access.
Well,
period.
The media needs to come together and protest, and don't show up to any more of these damn conferences, these press conferences. Don't show up. Make up some shit on them. That's what he's doing. So do the same thing in reverse.
Well, he's already charged them with what he's doing, fake news.
Yeah, well, he's the faker of all time. And we can't let him to continue to get away with that.
But it's also obvious that Sean Spicer cannot do this job.
Oh, no.
It's just that obvious.
He was way over his head from day one.
Exactly. So you look at 45 and who he has around him, once again, all the King's men, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. And I'll throw in there Kellyanne Conway in all the King's men mentality, because it's usually a representation of the king or that person. Mm. But look who you got. You got Sean Spicer, you got Kellyanne Conway, who are just stupid in their positions.
Straight
and
up.
keep on making, all the way stupid. So when you have those people who are inept to do the job, this is what you get. They're going to replace Spicer soon, and rightfully so. They should have given him the axe him a month ago. They waited so long for it to play out.
Yeah.
Well, but any time you become fodder for social media laughing stock, you become the LOL. Mm-hmm. Melissa McCarthy makes fun of you on SNL, things like that.
Right.
You are a joke.
Totally.
And nobody can take you seriously. But you did it to yourself by, once again, not being experienced, and then second of all, not respecting the press. The press is doing their job. It's not their fault you can't answer a question.
Yeah.
You're just SOS. You're stuck on stupid, and you're dangling on dumb.
Dangling on dumb. I like that. Stuck on stupid and dangling on dumb.
Yeah, that's right.
Dumb. Ba-dum,
it's
boom.
Dumb. Right.
Exactly. Well, folks, this is serious business. Even people I pick up on my Lyft rides, engaging in conversation now. For a few months, people had kind of quieted down. Right after the election, people were outraged. Now, granted, I'm in a blue state, the great state of California, but people were not happy about the outcome. And people try to poo-poo, you guys out there in California, a bunch of lefties and all. My ass. I think the people out here are a lot smarter. They can see and reason through the bovine excrement that's put out there by these Republicans, and they're not hoodwinked with lies. Now, you might get offended by what I just said. Well, get over it. Start reading. Try to reason and decipher between what really makes sense and what doesn't. Don't buy the hype. You guys bought into the hype. Now, look what you got. You got Mr. Haney, Bozo the Clown, a liar, a wussy-grabbing freak as the president of the United States of America. Shame on you. Don't you have any shame? Your racism is that strong that you're willing to have a buffoon?
Now, hold on. I grew up with Bozo. That's an insult to Bozo the Clown. Don't say things like that.
I'm sorry. Okay, let me rephrase. I retract that.
Okay.
Let me see. Who else can I come up with?
Okay.
Candy and Cookie too.
See, you're showing your age. Well, I apologize to all the Bozo fans, but he is a clown. So what's
yes.
it? Okay, the Joker on Batman. How's that?
There you go. Now you got it.
Yeah, the Joker, the original Joker.
Now you've insulted the Joker.
Well, yeah, anybody have a name would be insulted to be associated with this
with 45
jackrabbit. Make me start swearing first thing in the morning. I'm trying to refrain from that.
Don't swear until noon your time.
Okay. Well, I'll be off then.
Okay, you can swear all you want to. You can still swear. Hell, it's your program. It's your show.
Yeah,
God damn it, at least swear.
Don't encourage me.
Okay, I'll try.
I'll
keep trying.
Take it easy.
I'll keep trying.
All right, I'm going to save myself here.
And Lee, you said after the election, everybody was mad as hell.
Mm-hmm.
You just wait till after they push through this Trump care. You just wait. You think the people, and don't be under any visions of grandeur that Trump care is going to be easy to get rid of. It's going to be just as hard as Obamacare was.
Well, it's probably going to be harder
Republicans will have struck.
Yeah, it's going to be harder because it panders to the insurance companies. And you think they're not going to spend $1 billion in campaign ads and what have you to keep what they're about to maybe get? And see, this is where I have a problem with the Democrats. You're laid back. You're too soft. Get mad. Start kicking some ass. Start fighting for the people of this country. You want to win in 2018? Fight now. You want to win in 2020? You want the White House back? Fight now. Don't wait until it's too late.
They don't want to offend their esteemed colleagues.
To hell with them. That's what I say.
Well, I don't know that because when there was all the protesting, those young people were out there protesting. I'm not young, but I was out there. Maybe if all of you get up and get out there too, it'll show something instead of just putting it down. I mean, that's a way of speaking. I mean, there's more protests going on, but people just don't get involved the way they should.
Well, protesting is definitely a part of the
It's a
strategy.
big part of it. It helped Martin Luther King when he did it. It helped many things. So.
Well, yeah. I mean, we have to be
I hear
vocal,
people say this
vigilant.
all the time. You complain about what the Democrats aren't doing. Well, get your asses up and get out there, everybody.
Right.
I get up and do it.
Well, protest is a part of what needs to be done.
I mean,
the other
we
part
don't
is,
want to do what they're doing. They go around Republicans and they're doing all this racist crap and people are coming up dead or a brother goes to prison for a crime that's less than what a white man does.
Right. Well, there's a lot of issues
involved.
A
lot of issues have to. So you got to get out and protest. Don't talk about it. Do it.
Well, protesting is a part of it, as I said.
It's a big part of it.
Well, it's a part. But you can protest and don't vote. Don't mean shit. That's my point. So get out, register to vote, and go vote.
Well,
because that's the bottom line.
All these young ones voted for Bernie Sanders.
Well, forget about that.
Because in their mind, he was going to change things.
Well,
they don't know what socialized medicine is yet. They don't know a lot of things.
Well, Bernie wasn't on the ballot.
Right.
Yeah, but those
He
kids
wasn't on
didn't
the-
vote because of that, because he didn't come up. Hillary beat him out.
That's
and
a
then
lesson
she's
learned.
a woman.
That's a lesson learned, and we can't do anything about that. And I've talked to a number
No,
of
we
young
can't,
people that
but
said,
we can get out and protest.
well, protesting again is a part of it. But if you protest and don't vote, then you might as well not protest. Protesting is bringing awareness
Well,
to a
I
problem.
think they will vote.
Well, I hope so. That's the bottom
Oh.
line. If
I
they
voted.
don't vote,
Everybody that protests with me voted.
well, okay, great.
And how much of a Bernie fan could they have been? Bernie supported Hillary Clinton. He fell in line.
Sure
You
did.
don't have
Yeah,
to
but
have
the young people don't think like that. If
Well,
you
they have
watch
to-
young
Okay,
people,
so
don't wanna
they don't
listen.
think they don't follow their leader. Is this what
They
you're
don't
saying?
follow a lot of things,
Yeah,
Elpo.
that's exactly
I can
what
sit
happened.
and tell my son day in and day out, have patience. You have an agent now. Sit back and bear. He don't want to have patience. Young people are
No.
stubborn. We were stubborn.
Well, yeah, that's some, not all.
Yeah, we
That's
were
some.
stubborn, but we came around. As we got older, we came around, and I understand
just
what
said
you're
the
saying.
good word,
young
older.
people, yeah, we came around, and when young people, I got grandkids who are just as stubborn and obstinate and anti whatever I say. And then there's this telephone call. There's this knock on my door because they are in trouble because they didn't heed what I said.
That's right.
They didn't listen.
No, they don't.
And it comes full circle. And when these youngsters who sat with their arms folded at home in their poopy diapers stayed home and didn't go out to support Hillary, now you got Donald Trump.
That's right.
Now you're about to lose health care. You're about to lose clean air, fresh water, Medicaid.
Well,
They're gonna
fortunately, I live in
destroy
California,
your Social
where
Security.
there's a lot of things California's not going to go for.
Well, that's
We're going to
just,
do our own health care.
well, that's a beautiful thing. But
it is.
But it's about
We're
the
the
United
top-
States
We're
of America.
the top producing state. We're number 6 in the world.
Carol.
They can't afford
Carol.
to lose us.
Carol,
What?
California had a $26.4 billion deficit
Had.
under Arnold.
Arnold.
And how
What
did they
you
get
say?
out of
Had.
it?
Yeah.
Had.
How did they get out of it? They get out of it by following the progressive agenda.
That's right.
You know,
And that meant race-
I have to think positive, and I am a Democrat, and I have to think very positive. I have to feel that everybody thinks the way I do. Get out there and push and push. We have Republicans now that don't agree with what they're doing, so all we can do is push and push and hope they kick their asses out of office.
Well, that
Well,
is
they're
the
26
ultimate goal. Definitely.
And their $26 billion deficit turned into $1 billion of surplus.
Right.
Because they followed a progressive agenda. And Minnesota did the same thing. Up in Oregon and Washington, they're doing the same thing. Why aren't those the blueprints for the Democratic Party? Why aren't those the blueprints to show that trickle down doesn't work and the progressive agenda works? And here's proof.
Because
But
they
Lee, you're
want
right.
to turn a blind eye to reality, and because all
Well-
they want is control, position, and control.
Well, that little
Now-
bit of people are controlling. If you pay attention right now to health care, they're not even letting a bunch of the Republicans in to hear what they're trying to change.
Only 13.
Yeah.
Only 13 Republicans know
So
what's in the
we
bill.
can stop that. There's more. It takes us all, Republicans that are against it, everybody.
Well,
I just can't see
we
this happening.
can't stop it.
I already have
we can't
offers
stop
to
it.
move to London. I go, well, you guys are doing just as bad.
Yeah, to hell with that. I'm staying at home. I ain't going
I might as well
nowhere.
stay here.
I'm
You
staying
move
right
to London, become an immigrant.
That's right.
You become an immigrant.
No, I ain't going nowhere. Be right here till it's all
Canada, the
over.
taxes are sky high.
Okay, well,
Okay. And nobody can make it up in Canada because the taxes are sky high.
They are.
yeah.
Okay, but
what-
they're sky high, but nobody can make it in Canada because the taxes are sky high.
Well, I have friends in Canada. They do pretty well.
Okay, but I'm my
Well, there's
point
always
is
going to be
simply
exceptions
this.
to the rule. That's why there's so
Right.
many
My
Canadians coming
point
down
is
here.
simply this: it is a myth that higher taxes create unlivable conditions, because here we have high taxes. If you want to listen to the right wing speak about it, but people can't. They don't have a livable wage. They don't have health care. They don't have access to education. In Canada, healthcare, colleges, and education, affordable housing, you pay a price. The same as
But
any
that
socialist
affordable
country.
housing, that's all over the world right now. It's getting worse and worse. I mean, in London, it's bad.
Yeah,
You know, I
because
was
they're
gonna
greedy
say-
homeowners. I mean,
Yeah,
and own these
I mean-
apartments and
And it's
single-family
not
homes they're
so
renting.
much.
But out here,
Right,
they're going to change things in California. Like where we're at, eventually they're going to tear this down, but they haven't been able to do it because they have to agree that I think it's a huge percent of it now has to be affordable, not just a small. Any place that's going up now, they have to agree to that. So it's slowing stuff down because they don't want to agree, but they have no choice. You're losing more money not agreeing.
You're right.
It's like in the marina. I walk there, and half those people were being given notices. Your rent's going up, such and such. Now, almost doubling the rent. Well, they all got together and they refused. Well, first of all, to rent all those places, once you kick them all out, you're going to have to fix them up. Mm-hmm. That's going to take a couple months. You're not going to collect that rent. You're going to lose more money than what you were going to make. And they figured that out, and now all these people are staying. And that needs to happen everywhere. Rents are just too damn high.
They are, and especially here in California.
Exactly.
And it's spreading all over the country because people
Everywhere.
are leaving
I've
places
seen a map
like here,
on it.
they're looking for affordable housing. I was talking to a guy, what was it, yesterday or day before yesterday? And he was telling me about a place in Arizona. 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, nice living room area, spacious, for $695 a month. I went, damn,
Where was this at?
Arizona. Just 2 states away.
And what is the hourly wages there?
Well, I don't know, but hell,
A lot of places are still at $8 an hour.
okay. But even a person on a fixed income, $695 is not bad. You know,
That's true.
that's a good. That's
Man-
I don't know
it's
when I've
manageable.
heard of something
Well,
like
they
that.
say even Arkansas is going up. I seen that
Oh, yeah.
yesterday. They were showing you a map where everywhere it's going up. And I mean, if you go grocery shopping, you go to restaurants, everybody trips because I like Denny's. I go, well, their prices don't really change.
Mm-hmm.
So an egg's an egg, whatever. But you
Yeah,
go
and
in
they're
these
slow.
restaurants everywhere you go now, it's like double the price. You go into shopping at Costco's now, they call themselves, they're upgrading their food they're bringing in, which is to me eggs when they go, well, they're cage free. Cage free, has anybody paid attention what cage free is? They put thousands of little chickens together and they're like squash. Yeah, they're not in a cage, but it's just as bad, believe me.
They're just in a bigger cage.
Yeah, they just, people can be
Yeah.
psyched out so easy. So easy.
Yeah,
And
well, it's all about it's marketing and
Right.
taking a phrase
It's
and
market.
turn it into
Tell me
something.
Lee, you used to be down there. I
Down
don't-
where?
were
What are you
still
talking
around, Down around in the Gulf.
Yeah.
When the Gulf
Oh,
spill
okay.
happened.
Yes.
When they declared with the PR campaign on TV, come down, the food is fine, the tourism is fine. Was it?
Probably not.
I'll say hell no.
You're right.
I'll
I
say
mean,
hell no.
when you have an oil spill the way they had down in the Gulf, and I was down in
What
that area.
was it? What did they pour on it? Corexic, Exic, something to that effect
Yeah,
that made the oil sink to the floor
right.
of the Gulf.
Where
And now
the
it's really
crabs
taking
and
its toll.
shrimp and
Exactly.
lobster live. And then
You had-
the
you had
fishermen
shrimp
were
with
out there
4
bringing
eyes.
in the lobster and the shrimp and the crab and all of that. It's it's fine. Yeah,
And
no,
they
weren't part of that.
and they were getting sick as hell.
Exactly. Well, Let me just say hello to a few people. Val Young is checked in. Of course, Chris Bass. He's always there. And we're gonna pivot here and bring in our guest today, who has an interesting story, and I'm gonna introduce him, and Carol and I will talk with him, ask questions, and certainly you guys can participate as well. But he has a unique story, his life, and it's a story that started out kind of rough, and this young man is sitting here today living a different life. I want to introduce you to Bernard Cooper.
Hey, y'all. Bernard K. Cooper.
K. Cooper.
Yeah, my
What's the
friends
K
call me-
stand for?
Well, the
Cool.
K stand for
Mr. Cool.
Kufan.
Oh, Jesus.
For what?
Jeez,
Kufan.
Carol.
Oh, Kufan.
Yeah, Kufan. That's the name my mother, my mother gave me.
I like that.
But my friends call me Khalid.
Okay.
Yeah, and that,
Born and raised here in L.A.?
yeah, I was born and raised right here in L.A.
Okay.
Yep. Spent 18 years in L.A. Rest of the years in prison.
How many years in prison?
25.
25 years.
Yes.
Wow. What
How
happened?
old were you when you went?
I was 18.
Wow.
Yeah. What happened?
Well, I was wrongly convicted of murder due to an incident that happened when I was a kid, after school situation that unfolded. It was gang issues. Unfortunately, somebody lost their life, and I was sort of pinpointed. I was sort of targeted, and before I knew it, I was convicted. I was arrested, tried, and convicted, and sentenced 15 to life in prison. But I ended up doing 25 years.
So you did not commit this murder?
No.
What was the name of the person that died?
Oh, that's the problem. That was the problem with the court system. That was the problem with the police. That was the problem with the BPH, with the Board of Prison Terms, because I refused to turn in the the actual shooter.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the way, the way it is.
So, but I mean, who was the victim? Did you
My
know the victim?
No, I didn't know him, but he, at the time, during my addiction, I saw the victim as a rival gang member, not as a human being. So that's something I had to come to terms with, But he was a rival gang member, and
What do you mean when you say rival gangbang?
he was a
Different gang.
someone opposed to where I come from.
From your gang.
Right, someone in opposition.
Now, what gang were you affiliated with?
Well, I'd rather not say
Okay.
on the air, but I was heavily involved in that gang. That's where I come from. I was born and raised there.
Okay.
The
What part
people
of town?
in South Los Angeles.
Okay.
Right in the heart of the West Side.
Okay.
Were you given no choice to join this gang?
What? Yes,
I
I
mean,
had
but
choices. No,
you
I had
did,
choices.
but you
I mean,
chose.
a lot of people may say that they didn't have no
I just
choices.
hear-
that
I
they,
hear people
they
say
come
that.
from broken homes and stuff like that. Not me. My mother did everything she could to keep me from that life. I had a father, that came around. He didn't live with her, but he came around. He wasn't the nurturing type, but he came around. He provided. But I chose the street life. As a kid, you pretty much grow up into it. Like, that's where everybody there is associated
Yeah.
with that particular gang in one way or another, whether it's your brother, your sister, some instances today, they tell your father, your mother, your grandfather, because that's the history of it.
Yeah.
But me personally, I had choices. It's just
Why did you
somewhere
make-
around 7th grade, I began making the wrong choice.
Okay. All right. So I was about to ask you, why did you make that choice? And you now realize it was the wrong choice,
Well,
a bad choice.
I was pretty much fascinated with the gang life early on as a kid. I remember playing with playing with action figures like they were gang members because I used to creep out of my mom's house and go to the back and watch my older brother and his friends, have gang meetings, and it kind of intrigued me, but I had no idea.
What's a gang beating?
Gang meeting.
Oh, I thought it said beating.
No.
Yes, no, gang meetings. Beatings may happen here. But,
As a result of the meeting.
As a result of the meeting. But, but I was intrigued by that. But what really pushed me to that was events that unfolded, such as, I have an extended family member, sister, who was during the beginning of the war between us and another community was, kidnapped, raped, beaten, stabbed multiple times with a throat slit. Left at our rival gangs high school football field. Miraculously, she was discovered by the janitor, and she survived. But it took a toll on her. It took a toll on her. But I had no idea none of that. But coming up, hitting 7th grade, you start getting jumped on because of where you live you live at.
Right. And
in my sister's attempt to explain to me what was going on, she inadvertently exposed to me what happened to her. And from then on, the gang life that had been my life from that point on.
So because of what happened to your sister, did that make you commit to really, really being a part of that gang life?
Absolutely.
Was it about revenge?
It was
at that
about
point?
revenge.
Yeah.
Revenge was instilled in me.
Sure.
From early on.
Yeah.
I once I learned who they were and where they were and being jumped on at junior high school because of where I lived at, and putting the two together and knowing that people that died. Sometimes I remember being 7, 8 years old, seeing one of my brother's older friends dead on the dead down the street where I have to walk past the chalk lines.
Yeah.
But I had no clue that I was growing up into that.
Yeah.
But that I went into that like that. I went in that with a hate, and it just developed more and more as time went on.
Yeah. We're talking to Bernard K. Cooper, who was accused and convicted of murder that he did not perform or have anything to do with. He was at the scene but did not pull the trigger. Is that right?
Right. Well, I feel I'm responsible for my actions. I went there knowing that the end result could possibly be that. It was after school at a popular after school eatery situation. So I knew that rivals would likely be there. I would upon going there, I was told that they was there. So I was, and that's the likely result of the two of us coming in contact with each other.
Right.
So I had to gain insight into that to be able to take responsibility for my part because a life was taken right there.
Right.
And so I had to take a look at that and see my responsibility in that.
Sure.
I went there. I was ready. If it was me, I would have did it.
Right.
Because I looked at him as a rival instead of another human being.
Yeah. Yeah.
And which was bred in me from early on.
So what, other than the fact that he was in a different gang, did he do anything to was worthy of taking his life, or did he was he associated with a crime against your gang?
Well, actually, unfortunately, he had been at the location bullying the 13, 14-year-olds because of where they lived at, slapping them up, beating them up, or whatnot. When me and my friends, high school-age kids, arrived, upon him noticing us, he became irate. We exchanged gang unpleasantries, and he rushed forward with his hand behind his back, threatening to shoot. Somebody that was in our group pulled a weapon out, shoot at him, chase him down, and gun him down. Okay.
Was anybody else convicted?
No. I was targeted due to that I believe was an officer who had it in for me and had it in for A-Trade, or the period where I come from, right? And which is common in our areas, from our rivals to every.
Sure.
This is something that they do to all of us.
Right.
And he accused me of opening fire on him in his personal on his personal time.
Okay.
The very
Off
next,
duty.
Right, off duty. The next day, he jammed me up, threatened me,
Okay.
looking for a weapon and all that as I was returning from school.
Okay.
Okay, as people started to come out, because he had me by my neck and telling me that I shot at him, that he's gonna get me and so forth. But as people come out, he relinquished that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so once he relinquished that, he threatened me that I'm gonna get you, and he takes the picture. It was that picture that I believe that after that, the next day he took that to the detectives, whoever was investigating that case at that time, and he shared whatever he shared with them, and that's what it wasn't until he got involved that I became the primary suspect, the only suspect out of all the people that was there.
Wow.
Only none of the people who was allegedly with me, no one else was arrested, but me, and they and what they did was they had kids, the 13, 14-year-olds that as it turns out now through investigative work and so forth, that they were threatened to identify me. They were threatened. They was my photograph was hinted to. Two of these kids on the day that this happened identified someone else with a photo
As
of me
a
right
shooter.
next to him as a photo, and never
Right.
once did they ever did they see me as any familiarity whatsoever. But until this officer get involved, what they did was they removed that person who they was looking for, replaced it with me, and took it to the kids and manipulated them to identify me, because this officer may have told him that he believed I shot at him.
At him, yeah.
So but when you're going into this, from our standpoint, we're uneducated. We don't know nothing about the judicial system.
Yep.
We got this sickness that we out here doing. We don't even realize what's going on until we find ourselves in jail, and they're telling you that you're facing the death penalty.
Yeah.
You're facing life without, you don't have a
Parole or
clue
nothing,
as to
yeah.
what's going on. So I pretty much had to represent myself throughout the whole ordeal.
So now you went to prison for 15 to life,
Yes.
and you served 25 years. Tell us a little bit about the 25 years behind those bars. What did you go through? What was a day like?
Violence is always, the order of the day where I came from.
Okay.
I spent my whole time on the maximum security level 4 prison facilities, from the highest ones to the lowest, but all high security. I never made it to a lower level, and that was due to entering prison with I didn't respect authority at that point, because it dawned on me everything that happened. So I had zero tolerance with authority figures.
Right, because
So-
you had been wronged,
Right. So I had
accused
that.
and convicted of something that you didn't do.
Right. So I had that chip on my shoulder. So I accumulated a lot of, a lot of, disciplinary actions, entering prison that prevented me from being able to go to a lower level. But I was angry for a whole lot of years, But entering prison, you come into a whole another world, another concrete world, where everything that's accessible from on the streets is accessible there, from drugs to phones to everything else. But back then when I entered, none of that, a lot of that wasn't available,
Sure.
but except for the drugs and so forth. But my biggest thing is having to enter prison and shake hands with the very people that I was raised to kill. Because these same dudes and entering me personally, I entered with that chip, with that chip still on my shoulder also.
Right.
So when I was meted and greeted, I didn't participate.
Okay.
And when
So
you don't participate, the dudes that's been in there,
Right.
damn, they gonna get at you.
Right.
And they got at me that one time and told me, you don't do that here. we together here.
So these were rival gang members that were trying to confide with you and say, hey, look, we all in here together.
Absolutely, that's how it is.
Now, what about gang members that you were affiliated with?
Well, that's who told me that I needed to respect these rivals. That I needed that we all together.
Right.
You don't bring
leave that out on the streets.
The stuff that you don't leave that out on the streets. Absolutely.
Right.
But,
it's about survival internal.
Right, but to a kid that's coming in to where I never been to YAs or camps or juvenile facilities.
This is your first time.
That was my first
you went
time
to
ever.
Prison.
Period. Like I've never been. I never had no record. My only record is falsifying identification to peace officers during the field interview. That was that's the extent of my police record.
Right. Okay.
And from that, everything else just started unfolding.
Yeah.
So they just basically pick who they're going to decide who did.
Oh yeah, that's common.
But it all depends, like who you are. Like, if they want you, they want you. I just believe that it would just so happen that that happened to him. Whoever shot at him. He was bent on it being me, and that's where it unfolded. But back to the prison situation it's a lot of death in prison, but it's not the death that I know.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you enter in prison and you come into a whole different world where you're telling me that the people that I hunted and that hunted me, that shot me several times, now I have to be friends with these dudes.
Right.
Coming in, and now I have to hate this other race.
Yeah.
You have to hate this other race because this is who your enemy is now. When they walk in you around that yard, they tell you this is who your enemy is now.
Now, who is that?
These Hispanics,
okay,
whites, others, anything outside of blacks. It's all about race, and that's where all this division really comes from.
Okay,
that I had learned.
Right,
and me, I always wanted to be the best at everything that I wanted to do. So I wanted to be the best in that field also.
Mm-hmm.
So I was with that. Whatever my calling was, that's what I did.
Now, you had 15 to life. How did you get out at in 25?
Well,
tell us
it
about that.
probably took maybe over 5 years, but 5 years because I had so much discipline going on, man, that I didn't believe that I was ever going to get out through that channel.
Mm-hmm.
But in 2012, I had got a law library job. And I began to study the law because I needed to learn what they can do and not do to me in a parole hearing.
Sure.
I needed to know how to pursue my appeal on my own because all them so-called innocent projects and all them people, I have 1,000 letters that I've sent out and to no avail, even though I had these investigators and affidavits from the main people who said that I did this, and you wouldn't even budge. You wouldn't even lift a finger for me because I didn't have any DNA, But so I decided that I needed to do it myself. So I went in there and I didn't trust the legal beagles and the jailhouse lawyers. I didn't because you're never supposed to share your case with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So I did it all myself. I put my own writ together. I'm in the Court of Appeals, the Federal Court of Appeals right now. That I did myself.
You're still representing yourself.
And I'm still representing myself because I just need people to understand what had happened right there. I take responsibility for my actions going there because I had a sickness. Just like my rivals had a sickness. They still have a sickness today. So those things, it unfolded. But
Bottom line, Bernard, you did not commit the crime. You went to jail for 25 years for a crime that you did not commit. You did not murder anyone.
Absolutely. I did not.
Now, in the Court of Appeals that you're dealing with right now, what is that potential outcome?
I'm in there under actual innocence, but again, I'm unrepresented.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just me. I mean, but I'm not afraid of that because it was just me back in 1992 when I had to go pro per at 18 years old to try to get somebody to look at me.
Right. Okay, so now how did you get out? You went before
after,
you're on parole now. Is that correct? Or
Absolutely.
you have not been found innocent
No.
yet?
No.
That's what you're appealing.
That's what I'm appealing.
Okay, so you're
But
out on parole.
I got out of parole. I got out on parole because I changed my life around.
Okay.
I began to explore forgiveness. And I knew that I had to, in order to receive forgiveness, that I had to forgive. I had to let go all the hate and the anger and frustrations that I had in order to be able to see what happened to me.
Right.
So I dug deep. I spent 15 months in solitary confinement, thinking about that. But
Yeah.
it didn't happen. It wasn't going to happen overnight. This was in 2000, 2002, 2003. I was in the SHU for 15 months for assaulting another race. And while in there, it dawned on me that my violence, had went from street violence to up close and personal violence.
Yeah.
Did you fight the person just because they were another race?
No, because
It's saying you have no signal there.
That's okay.
Oh, okay.
well, in
was
prison,
listening to what you were saying
in prison, 9 times out of 10, the violence that you get in probably had nothing to do with you, but the politics of it. Just like you all were just speaking about the politics that's going on right now. Well, the streets have their own politics. Prison has their own politics.
Yeah.
And just like right now, disenfranchised, they not gonna vote. They're not gonna vote because they too busy wrapped up in their own little street wars and hating each other that they're
Right.
not gonna.
They
They're not
can't
focusing
see it.
on. They don't care about what's going on in Washington. We don't care about it because we feel it doesn't reach us here, even though it does. But that's just how it's been bred in. It's like
Right.
they don't give a fuck about us.
Right.
Excuse my language, but
No,
that's
okay.
that's
but how
it
do
is.
you see change if you don't?
Right, but with me,
But you vote now, correct?
right, but, hey, absolutely, and I would
Yeah.
encourage everyone to
'Cause
vote because you can't
yeah.
protest nothing without, like Mr. Michael
Yeah.
said, if you can't protest nothing without voting, if you haven't
Yeah.
gone without voting, you have no right to say what he's doing in there.
Right.
I agree with that. Unfortunately, I can't vote because it's, I'm restricted.
Right.
But
Because that
if
has
I,
a felony.
if I had the ability to, I would because I'm a changed individual now.
Right.
And that's what I represent here today. I understand the sickness that's out here from what I see now.
Well,
Right.
when most people protest, they protest because they want you to get out and vote and fight for what we want.
Yeah.
Right, but we lost that. We've lost sight of that in the inner city. Like you have
But
you have people trying, but
you got to change that.
We have to
Say
change it. I agree.
It's got to be changed.
I
mean,
absolutely agree.
Or it's going to get worse. We already see it getting worse.
Absolutely, it is worse because but they don't. We don't know, because we wrapped up in this, but they have to know. Like we have to bring a way to bring awareness, to it to those like me that's in the trenches right now that don't, that may still be able to vote. Because if I was out and I was 18 or whatever, I didn't have no record or nothing. But I'm quite sure there's youngsters out here right now with that's still the same because the process is still the same. It's just generation after generation. And my goal is to try to change the mindset and try to produce a new generation that can that can grow up without having to kill each other and maybe be somebody. Maybe we can be talking about somebody up in Congress that just come from right here, from right there where I come from.
Right.
So. But I had to come to this while in prison. I before I got here, I had to.
So let me ask you a question. When you got out, did you get out because you proved you were innocent?
No,
Or you're appealing that now?
I'm appealing that now. But I got out because I of good behavior. I did. I created programs in prison that address gang issues. I've created fundraisers in prison. I've got, I've did all type of charity work in prison. I've got all type of self-help programming for AA, anger management, you know, college courses. These things I started to do. I've always did them in there, but for me, it had to be a balancing out because I was still battling with who I was in that life as this person over here who would like to get out one day. So even entering prison, I got my GED. I got vocational trades in masonry and silk screen and you know, carpentry. You know, so I've always tried to balance it out. But at the end, on the flip side, I was violent. And I was being raised to be a leader in that world. So it didn't take until I got locked up again. Did they put me in the hole again in 2012? Did it really dawn on me that, you know, what you're doing, you got to retire from that.
So now let me ask you a question. The person that did shoot him, does it get you angry at all, or because you're a gang at the time you were in a gang? So the person that did kill this person, does it get you mad that they never came forward, or they just let it go?
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because I you know, I knew the likely result. I mean, because in the world that we come from, you know, you know what you're supposed to know what the end result is. So I can't knock him because he didn't get caught. You know what I'm saying? I got caught. You know, I was there. You know, if it would been me, I would have been the one. You know, but that wasn't the case. But I did go there knowing fully well that I might be engaging either physically or whatever with rival gang members at this particular location. So I've never been mad at that individual, nor ever will. But do we have any relationship? Do we speak, or are we cool? No, we're not cool. You know, we're not cool. You know, because
is he
at the
in
end
or
of the
out?
day, I don't know.
Do they want to ask a question?
You know, I don't know. All I know is that what I had to do is come to terms with all that anger, all that built up, and figure out how I was going to get out of prison. You know, and I had, and the way to get out of prison is to take responsibility for your actions. You know, the boys, they not telling me to take, you know, that I have to take responsibility for the actual act.
Right.
But they want me to take responsibility for my actions. And I take responsibility for my actions. I went there knowing this here. You know, but as such, showing that to them through my actions and you know, in my words, then, you know, they saw fit that I was suitable for parole. So that was just that door. That was one of three doors, of two doors that I was checking. I was checking the court system, and I was checking those doors.
Okay.
You know, so and one of them was gonna open.
Now,
So,
how many times did you go up for parole in the 25 years that you were incarcerated?
Well, for me, I only been inside the parole board 2 times.
Twice. Okay.
Why? Because I pretty much boycotted them. You know, when I'm coming in, I pretty much boycott them. Well, I want to go in there for it. You know, so I never went in.
Okay.
So it wasn't until 2010 that I tried to do this.
Okay.
And the attorney came out and said, no, they want to see you. So I went in and you know, the commissioner, he told me, man, why don't you come in, man? I said, well, I don't want to waste your time or mine because I know that I'm not ready. You know, I'm not suitable. You know, I told him, like, but you do know that we letting people out. He's like, I see what you're doing. You got your GED, you got these vocational trades, but all this, you got 2 files of disciplinary. He's like, so I'm trying to figure out. I'm like, but you do all you have to do is give us some clean time and show some responsibility for what you did. And it was then that I began the process of thinking about getting out of prison.
Making that transition.
Making a transition, but it doesn't come overnight.
Yeah.
As soon as I left there, I messed up.
Yeah.
You know, so I knew, okay, now I really can't go back in because this dude had just told me this.
Yeah, what you need to do.
Well, you do, and then I messed it up again.
Right.
So, but it wasn't nothing serious. But I still in all, you know, because I only had like maybe, well, I didn't have no years clean at that point when he was telling me.
Sure.
So then I ended up getting this. So from that to 2012, you know, I started being disciplinary free.
Okay.
So by the time I made it to my first parole board, you know, I pretty much had everything except years clean. Like most people go, it take 9, 10, 15 times before you get suitable.
That's why I asked that question.
So what I did was,
that.
I learned. I listened to what they told me when I went, because when I finally went in, said, "Man, I see what you're doing," because I had all my certificates. I did it as like it was a business meeting.
Right.
Put all my portfolio together myself, because I had attorneys that worked me out of several $1,000s. The BPA sharks, I call them, which is the attorneys that they give you because you indigent. So I had a conflict with one, because I tried to buy one, and I was worked out of some money for that. So I decided I need to do this myself.
Right.
And
you can only trust yourself, because you know what you can do or not do, and nobody can lie to you.
Right, nobody can lie to me. So once I started studying and seeing what it is that I needed to do, and I had the support base, fortunately I had I had a wife that was willing to do the footwork for me. So
now wait a minute, when did you get married? While in prison or before?
In prison.
I've been married 3 times.
Oh, get out! In prison?
Yes.
How'd you do that, dog? Explain that to me.
Yeah.
Well, fortunately, I've never been without a woman in prison.
Really?
Right.
So could she come and visit?
Visit me, and but
really,
and that's the only time I went without a woman in prison, when I did the shoot time and solitary confinement.
Right.
But I've always pretty much had a friend or something.
Now,
had a friend in prison.
the 3 women that you were married to while incarcerated, did you know them prior to going to prison?
2 of them.
2 of them.
Yeah, 2 of them I did.
And how'd you meet the 3rd one?
I bet the 3rd
Don't tell me Facebook.
Well, no. Well, you know what? Actually, I was writing. I was writing somebody, contacting somebody for somebody. And the young lady answered or whatnot, and me, I wasn't looking for nothing. I wasn't looking for nothing, because I never lost sight of the fact that I had life in prison. So me personally, I never.
So now are you still with the 3rd wife?
Well, yeah. But we try, but it's issues and stuff, that we got that's on the table, because I'm fresh home, so I don't, it's a whole difference.
Now, how long you been out now?
I've been out over a year.
Over a year. Now, what's like? Before we get to that, while you were in prison, was there any fear that you had in your mind of possibly getting out, and then what life would be when you get out? Was there fear about that?
Well, I never even thought about ever getting. I just knew that I had to try to find my way out. I never really entertained what I would do if I was to get out. Okay, so those thoughts didn't come till I was getting ready to go up for parole, and then those thoughts start to come, like, what if this happens? And even then, when they find you suitable, you still have a 6-month wait for the governor to sign off on it, because you're a lifer, and they so that's the longest wait, to find out whether he's gonna accept it or not based on your file.
So now that you're out, what are you doing?
Well, I have a book coming out. The book is called Kufan, The Longest Wait, and it represents my mother's struggle to try to keep me out of those streets, keep me from that. She did it all herself, she, with all the kids that she had, but I was the baby, and she, so it represents her struggle, man, and my transition, in that life right there, leading up to my incarceration.
Right.
And then we're working on a second book, which would be my fight to get out of prison.
Yeah.
Because I always told myself that I was going to get out of prison, and my mother always told me that, that she was waiting for me to get out of prison.
Yeah.
And she did that, so. But also I run a program called Affiliates and Offenders Recovery Program.
Okay.
Which is a program that I designed that helps California inmates address what's called the causative factors of their commitment offense, and the vast majority of them has to deal with gang issues. So we address those issues, and we also are a letter writing program where they can, which is designed to help them display amends to the community by sharing their thoughts and what they would like to see for these youth out here. And we provide those letters to different organizations, of people that's at risk, kids that's at risk, and so forth. Right now we're trying to move into reentry, try to help some of the guys that's coming home. Other than that, man, I work. I work 12 hours a day.
What are you doing?
I do railroad.
Okay.
Yeah, I do railing, and it's good.
Did you learn that trade in prison?
No. Well, none of the trades I learned in prison, other than I do housework, things like that, or I do stage work, stage crew work. I do, anything legit that's going to help me.
Sure.
Because
survive.
I'm out here navigating this on my own. 'Cause I never had no father figures. I never had anybody to do that with.
Now, the job that you have now, how long have you had that?
Oh, for almost a year now.
Okay. So was it hard finding that job coming out of prison after 25 years of being incarcerated?
Well, actually not, because I came out with a desire to do that.
Okay.
I came out with a desire to do that. So I got with the resources that was available. There's tons of resources that help you. Organizations like Friends Outside. These people help you, show you how to do your resumes and set you up for job interviews. So they was very helpful in that.
I hear it so often that most prisoners, or many, after being incarcerated, come out back into the world. They find it almost impossible to find a job because no one will trust them because they're felons, and they end up going back in. So, I mean, you had a big scar on your chest, on your forehead of convicted of a murder that, you didn't do it, but a lot of people would be a little nervous about hiring someone with that kind of a record. And so I'm happy for you that you've been able to overcome that. But I hear so many other guys that say, man, I can't seem to find nothing. Nobody want to trust me.
Well, for me, that was 25 years ago, man.
Yeah.
That was 25 years ago. So, I go into things. If you're going to judge me based on something that I did in 25 years ago, then where does that leave society? Where does that leave society?
World.
If you tell me that you're judging me based on, so what if we as black, continue to judge you for what you did for us 60, 70, 100 years ago, what I mean? So you can't judge people based on what they did in their past, because the object of life is to grow. If you ain't growing, then you're dead. So whenever I go into an interview and things like that, but before I even go to an interview or anything like that, I had to check out the resources that I had. And you have all these organizations. So, to those who still hold on to that ideology, I tell them, there's agencies out here that you can work for. So don't tell me that you can't do that.
Right.
Because I come from that, so I know you playing.
Right.
So they playing.
Yeah.
Whoever said that, they playing. Tell them I said that, they playing, because they can go to them agencies and work for them agencies.
Okay.
And what the agencies is a mediator between you and the employer.
Okay.
And I've worked for them. And then I've discovered that my issue was 25 years ago.
Right.
So but for those, they do have those issues, but it's mainly on their own part also.
Right.
Because they got these agencies, they're all around town and all over. That will help you get into employment so that you can establish some work history. And that's what I did. I got out and got into those agencies so that I can establish some work history.
Right.
Because I had nothing. So they can do that. So I don't want to hear none of that.
So now the programs that you've put together, are you teaching these guys men and women how to do that?
Well,
Is that part of your program?
Well, absolutely through example. But my program right now, that's what we're moving into. We're moving into the reentry side of things.
Right.
But my program is to prepare them before they get here, like I was prepared.
Right.
You know, I had to learn all this before I got here. You can't wait till you get out and decide you're gonna get, retired from the gang or you finna, you can't wait till you get out to do that.
Right.
Because it's not gonna happen. The mindset is not gonna allow you to happen if you continue the mindset from here to here
Right.
and you get out with that mindset out here, then you're not gonna change.
Yeah.
You can't
It's
wait.
all
You
the
have
same.
to, and that's the philosophy that I had to come to before I got here. I told myself, you got to let go. But once I did all that's when everything started opening up. But the people out here that's just that don't have that, they can do it. You can't tell me you can't do it because I know I worked with I have partners that work with the organization.
Sure.
I have contacts in all these organizations.
Right.
So whenever somebody contacts me and asks me for a job, I have you can get that.
Right.
So it's really the mindset on the individual that they're so stuck on that ideology that's been given to us for many, many, many years. That you can't do them because you're a felon. You can't do that. You can't do this or that because
Right.
you're a felon. You can't. But the reality is that those times have changed. They got mediators that's going to help you do it. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? That's going to help you transition.
Sure.
into
So now
the workforce.
what I'm hearing you say is it starts with the individual. He or she has to say, okay, I don't want to be in this life anymore. I want to get out of prison. I want to transition back to the world, but not with the same mindset. Because if you go back to the world and you're still angry, you're still committed to doing the gang thing or whatever it was that got you incarcerated, until you let that go, chances are you're going to be back. Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely. I mean, anything that you would do repetitively that's going to hurt you is insane.
Right.
That's called insane.
Yeah, expecting a different result.
Expecting a different result. That's called insane.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
So you can't
Yeah.
figure you're gonna make it. And I've heard that many times through my, my associates in prison. That when I get out, I'm gonna do this. And I tell them you ain't gonna do that if you get out because you're still caught up
tripping.
right now. So how you expect you're gonna be able to do that when the world is more open to you than right here?
Well, now, it's always been a question in my mind. Okay, you were behind bars, incarcerated at the age of 18. 25 years later, you step out into the world, sunshine on your forehead.
A lot of
With-
change, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
man, it's beautiful. That was a beautiful, beautiful moment, man.
Yeah.
Because I didn't believe it until till the gates actually opened up, and I was on the outside, driving home.
What were your thoughts?
Like man, I did it. You know what I'm saying? I did it. And I just couldn't
were there
believe it.
tears
It
of
was
joy?
surreal. Yeah. It was tears of joy for a minute.
Yeah.
Just like we did it. Man.
Yeah.
Because it took out
That's a major accomplishment.
my third wife.
Mm-hmm.
She fought with me for the last 8 years.
Okay.
Do you have children?
Yes, all my children are grown.
Wow.
Yeah, all my children are 27, 26, and 25.
Excellent. Wow. That's an amazing story, and I'm happy for you that you've been able to get back out of that world, get out of that world, and get back to being productive. And it sounds I hear a lot of hope and promise and for others. I mean, you've pulled it off. Of course, you still got this one thing in front of you. You're out on parole, but you want to be truly a free man and freed from a crime that you did not commit.
Absolutely.
So, since you've gotten out, are you still doing all of the work yourself to free yourself? You're not getting
Right.
any kind of lawyer help?
No, absolutely.
From universities,
No,
nobody's come up and
no.
say, "Hey, man, we want to help you."
No, in
If
no,
some
no, no.
legitimate, hardworking
Well, don't you think
people,
sometimes so they kind of threaten them because it's like the three guys in Memphis, those 3 that went to prison for a crime they didn't commit.
Right.
Well, my granddaughter did a movie with one of them. She did and he was telling her the story. He said they still had to get out, and they appealed it. They still had to be like they were guilty.
Why you still
and
have
they're
to do it?
still fighting this
Right, and
because
because
they
they
want to
divorced,
prove.
but-
And even a neighbor, because they didn't live in the same town, said she's seen the stepfather. Nobody came and questioned her, she said. They'd seen the stepfather walk those boys into the woods. But they're still fighting this. So to me, they still try to mess with these people. They in a roundabout
Well, no,
way.
they do not. You know,
That's
they
what
do
I'm
not want to
asking
admit
you.
that they're wrong.
That's
like
what I'm
you know what I'm saying?
saying. Yeah.
Like for
That's what I
instance, for
meant.
me, I know I went in there uneducated. I didn't have a clue as to what they were doing, what they were saying. You know, and my mother couldn't save me. I was 18 now, so she couldn't save me. So I didn't know what I was doing. All I know is that I went before the judge and I was asking him for an investigator, because once I seen this officer testify against me, I knew, okay, that this something's up here.
They all stick together.
Now, Bernard K. Cooper is our guest today, who was incarcerated for 25 years. He's out on parole. He has he's before the appellate court to become a free man. Now, what happened with this cop that got you all jacked up? Where is he now? What's happening?
How all that unfolded was I finally was able to acquire an investigator.
Okay.
You know, and I allowed him to read what I've read once I educated myself. Once I educated myself and I learned how to comprehend what I was reading, then I pretty much seen what happened. Like it was been there all along. It's just that, and what he discovered was that this officer was removed from the Reginald Denny beating trial in December 1992.
Okay.
He was removed. Well, January 1992 is when he testified against me. February 1992 is when I had to go pro per by firing my public defender.
Okay.
So from February to December, I was there fighting myself.
Now, why was he removed from the Reginald Denny case?
He was removed for allegedly fired for eyewitness tampering.
Eyewitness tampering.
Absolutely. Right. The investigator was unfolding and all that, but we received a lot of roadblocks, but we did receive the information that he was removed from the Reginald Denny beating. But from that, in December 10th, 1992, is when I relinquished my pro per status to an attorney, and I was under the impression that he was going to investigate. Well, that didn't happen. We went along. This officer was removed prior to my trial.
Okay.
Assumably because of the Reginald Denny thing.
Right.
So upon this attorney receiving the document, the discovery, at that point right there, you would think that once he doesn't see this officer on the list, that he would say, well, where is it?
Yeah.
All he had to do was look and say, where is this officer at?
Right.
And they would have been unfolded that he was just removed from the Reginald Denny bench. They would have had them look at me, which was just in January, to say what else has he been involved in.
Absolutely.
All they had to do was take a look at me, you know, and it would unfold that all the evidence that was used against me came from him.
Wow.
So when we received this information, he was removed that December, so all this was still fresh.
Yeah.
At this time. But anyway, we get this information, the investigator bring this information, that's what prompted him to start going back re-interviewing the witnesses. And that's when it was unfolded that the witnesses, no, I'm talking on my case.
Right.
So that's what made him dig off into it. And when he came across the witnesses are stating that McMahon threatened him and told and was threatening him to follow up in court, or he gonna get charged with a crime. These are the kids that was at the scene. This is after school thing. So you got high school and middle school kids.
Right.
And you know, so he never looked at it. So, you know, I was convicted. I was convicted and sentenced, but once we got that in the witnesses come forward, that's when I start getting at the innocent projects. But I have all along just telling them.
Right.
I didn't know it was going to actually unfold
Sure.
to what I was feeling what happened was going to come to light like that. But it started unfolding, and the investigators started coming back with the main witness who said that he seen me shoot this gentleman. He come forward and said that on the night in question, he identified someone else that was on a lineup next to me.
Now, all this information is in the hands of the appellate court now?
Yeah, all that's in the hands of the appellate court and the Los Angeles District Attorney's case review program that they had down there. I never heard back. When I got out, I provided them with one. Never heard back from them.
Wow.
Not even an acknowledgement letter that they received it.
Now, is this officer still an officer?
I've been trying to get the information on him, but I've been getting roadblocks, because of me, I guess.
Yeah.
So I've been getting road because I need that to include with what's in the courts right now.
Sure.
So I've been trying to get it.
Now, is that something that the court itself can look into?
If they grant it, all they have to do is grant an evidentiary hearing, and I guarantee on my life that they will uncover everything that I put forth in my writ, in my affidavit. Everything that I expressed in there from A to Z will unfold, but they don't. It's just me. It's just me. So I'm not.
Is that something that you can request the appellate court to do?
Well, no, it's in limbo because right now they, what they did was the district court had denied me as untimely. They denied me as untimely because they say my affidavit was 25. It was 20 years later that these people come forward 20 years later. So they haven't. They say I haven't showed enough evidence to warrant an evidentiary hearing, even though I have the evidence on the officer.
Well, you've been in jail for 25 years. I mean,
right, and I didn't have the means.
Right.
So, but that's how the judicial system is. They do not. Wow. They're not gonna admit that they was wrong. Just like the Trump administration, right? They're not gonna admit that they was wrong. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the government.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They don't give a damn about what we going through out here in these streets.
Sure. Now, have you reached out to any mainstream media to look at your story and give some publicity? Because it seems to me that you need a little barnyard fire, to put some pressure on the legal system to make them accountable. Because, as long as it's just a little quiet, it's just you, the little guy trying to fight for himself. That's a little bit of embarrassment on the legal system. But if you bring it to the media's attention and they cover your story, you're going to shake some bigger trees, and the apples are going to have to fall. They're going to have to do a little more. You know what I mean?
Right.
It puts the pressure back on them. And you might wake up somebody out there that says, hey, I've read this guy's story. I want to talk with him, and I'm a lawyer. And I'm fighting for people who have been accused falsely, served time, and I want to help this guy. I know there are universities, law students, and what have you that have come and aided others that were convicted of crimes that they did not do, and they help get them out. It seems to me that maybe a little help at this point from some legitimate people who give a damn might be good for you right now. What are your feelings about that?
Well, I've always.
Would you be open to that?
Absolutely. Well, I've always sought help. It's just that once from there, while you in there, you send thousands of letters, man. Just trying to get somebody to take a look at you because of course they say that all prisoners gonna claim innocence. So that cliche right there sort of spoils you when you're reaching out from in there. I've written them all. I've written all of them, like all across the country, like thousands of letters. Because that's what I did. I wrote. I write. I wrote. I've always been a good writer. So
okay.
I contacted everybody. I even wrote the president before. Because that's my mission to return. It never stopped.
Right.
From the very beginning, though I was messing up.
Yeah,
mission
but you
to
didn't
get out.
commit the crime that you were convicted of.
Right.
And that's all that matters.
Right,
That is
that ate at
the
me.
subject at hand.
Right, and that ate at me and it eats at me every day because I left my kids for 25 years and on the surface it's as if I chose a gang over my kids. So I have this chip on my shoulder now where it's like, the next 25 years need to be spent trying to leave my kids some inheritances, and show them, who I am today.
Right. Now, how's the relationship with your children? Do they accept that?
Well,
what was Father's Day like?
Well, I really don't celebrate any of the holiday, but they, my son yesterday took me out to dinner. I allowed them, I let them do that. But me personally, I spent so many years alone that that's
hard.
It's hard to and then I never had a father figure or anything like that, so I didn't.
You don't know how to deal with
my
it.
father died, while I was in there, so. I didn't know how to deal with it. Just like with mothers, I really don't know how to deal with it because I don't have that. But and then also, I'm out here. My mission is what it is. If I can bring some peace to these streets or help them help somebody see what they need to see before it's too late. Then that's what it's all about. And leaving my kids some inheritance. I need to leave them something that's from me that they don't have to ask if it's theirs or not.
Now, are you in contact with all three of your children? Are they here in the LA area?
Yes, no. One is in Vegas. Actually, my stepkids and everything, they're all in Vegas.
Okay.
And my three kids are here.
Okay.
But they're separated, because my relationship with them is. Well, I have twins, and they're disabled. They have a disability.
Yeah.
And so all my time, I have to deal with their mother because they're not capable. But once my kids were grown, once they hit 18, I had decided in there that it's time for me to try to figure out my way home. I can't be chasing y'all around and like that. So that kind of, but my oldest son is the one who's always made a point to find me wherever I'm at and come to me and be with me.
That's good.
And he understands that, I'm a real solitary person, because I had to, and I think the hardest thing that people are dealing with someone like me is the lack of feelings.
Yeah.
With regard to anything that penetrates me or hurts me. I cut it off because I had to. I had to do that.
Yeah.
And I try to get them to understand that I spent more time there than I did here, so it's just not something I can just turn off. But whenever something penetrates me, I just long to just run and be alone. And I try to explain that to my son and other people in my life that it's not nothing personal. It's just that, I had to when my mom had her stroke back in 1994. I had to cut all that off, my feelings and everything in order to focus on what was in front of me.
Is your mother still alive?
No, she died, February 25th this year.
Oh, I'm sorry for your loss.
Yeah, right when I came home, but, my mother.
She did see you free.
Yeah, she got to see me.
Oh, that's a blessing.
That's why the book is called The Longest Wait. She got to see me come home. She got to spend all the holidays. She got to see me, got her grandkids, and she just and then she left, and then she left, but she said it all alone though. My mother, she always said that she was just waiting for me since the stroke back in '94. She just always said, I ain't going nowhere till you get here. And it unfolded like that.
Well, that had to be some inspiration for you too to hurry up and make that happen.
Right.
Do the right thing and
But it was written. It was written, man. It was God's hands in that because I was still, it was things happening in there that I had to get involved with. But by the grace of God, I was not. I didn't get caught up in the disciplinary parts of things. But it was hard to do that. and I made it here. I got a chance to see my mother.
Sure.
You know, I got a chance to bond with her. She got a chance to see me as a grown man.
That's it.
You
That's
know,
great,
and
man.
with a different thought process.
Sure.
You know, and she know that my kids are all right now because she didn't
Yeah.
switch places for them. But she always told me since day one, when I was sitting in that courtroom, that she would change places with me. You know, she said, "I do the time.
Yeah.
I do it for you."
That's mother's love, boy.
That mother's love, and
Yeah, boy.
I see it now.
Yeah.
You know, I see it. You know, and man, I just praise God that I was able to see her and be with her because I'm disconnected with my other family because I don't know them. They don't know me.
Now, did you spend all 25 years in the same prison?
No, I spent through several prisons throughout the state of California. I was messing up, so I've been through all of them. General population, though. No,
No,
I
okay.
don't know PC. The general population. I got out from a general population, so let's clear that up.
Okay.
You know, I
Excellent.
got out from general population.
What are some of the prisons you were you visited?
I've been in High Desert, Corcoran, Tehachapi, Calipatria, Lancaster, reception centers. Like that's about it. But you know, all level 4 prison yards.
Okay. Wow. That's a tough one, man.
Yeah, I've seen it all. You know,
Yeah.
I've seen all in there. Like I've seen, you know, dudes hang themselves. You know, I've seen dudes, you know, kill each other. You know, right in front of me. You know, you see a lot of that. You know,
Yeah.
you see a lot. You see the politics. You see dudes having to stab their own friends because you know that's the politics of it. You know, you see a lot of racial tension. You know, racial violence. You know, racial murders.
Is there anything inside the prisons trying to bridge that hate among rival gangs and or the racial tension? Is there any effort at all trying to stop that?
Well, I tip my hat off to the gentleman that was in Pelican Bay SHU that started you know a revolution within the prison system to where they would trying to get the prisoners to stop you know, to stop hating each other, stop fighting, and you know, stuff like that. So you know, before I left, I was seeing some fruits of that, but you know, overall, they're trying. As far as the system go, they would like to try to integrate the cells and stuff like that. But but they haven't done it because they know that you're gonna lose some lives. You know what I'm saying? Because the overall politics is not going to
Stop.
That's not going to stop in prison.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's a survival technique.
Now, did you have cellmates? Or a
Yeah,
cellmate?
well, I've had cell, but I was real selective about my cellmates. You know,
Do you have a choice in that?
you don't, but you know, you do it. Like I don't care what they say. You know, like
He said, I don't want him in here.
or when he come in, you just
Yeah.
tell him, look, man, you gon', you know. But I'll never deny nobody coming in.
Okay,
you know what I'm saying?
okay.
But it don't regard who they is. Like I done been to cell with rivals. You know, for a few days until people get them where they need to get to.
Right.
But since I've been home, I would like to talk about is that seeing what I see today out, you know, here with these kids, is that there's a lot of misinformation. Like I was given, I didn't get the fine print that after I do what I was doing out here, that I was gonna get to prison and be friends with these dudes.
Right.
You know,
You had no idea that would happen, huh?
right, and the things that they doing today, they don't even, you know, a lot of them are doing it off of drugs, which was different than my time. We didn't do things off of drugs. It, you know, we knew what we were doing.
Right.
And
Clear
like
head.
here now, I have a client, you know, a couple clients now whose kids are in who are locked up facing death penalties in there ready to hang themselves and stuff like that because they realize that they didn't sign on for something that's way bigger than them.
Yeah.
You know,
Had no
it's
idea.
a beast. It's a beast that's way bigger
Yeah.
than them, and they
Right.
18, 19 years old. And they don't know. I just, you know, it was a different era for me.
Yeah.
You know, that 1985 to the 90s era right there it's a whole different caliber of individuals.
Now, do you interface with some of the youngsters now that are in gangs or thinking about getting into gangs? Do you have a conversation with them?
Yes. You know, I don't. You know, I never. I would feel remiss, man, if I didn't say what I know. You know, to them when I come in contact with them. You know, they listen. Well, for the most part, they may listen, but it takes more than that. You know, I would like to create something where I can be better able to access them as a whole. So we're working on that. But I always let a young person know that's coming to me that's in that. You know, the consequences of what you're doing. Because I would bet my bottom dollar that you gonna regret it. You're gonna regret that, man. You know what I'm saying? So any opportunity that I get to share that with any of them, I'm gonna do it. I don't know if anybody else is doing it, but because it seems to me like there's a disconnect.
Yeah.
Between the older dudes and the younger dudes.
Yeah.
They probably figure they don't listen and so forth, but you know.
You can't give up hope. You
can't give up hope, so you have to.
Yeah.
You have to, they had to receive the message.
Sure.
You know, from somewhere, because don't get me wrong, I came from that, so I understand what it is. Understand that it's no longer about why these wars happen out here.
Right.
It's about who died in the war.
Yeah.
You know, like for me,
loss of life. Yeah.
For me, it was a reason why I was doing what I was doing. So and for some of them out here, they got those same reasons, because it's everybody's losing something. And then I think don't nobody realize that we all in pain. We all have lost something. We're all in pain, and nobody winning.
You know, there are millions of households, families that have family members that are incarcerated or have been incarcerated. It's not a thing that is isolated. It's among the poor, the middle class, the rich. It affects many families when you have millions and millions of people incarcerated. It's not a black thing, a white thing, or a social economical thing, because people get locked up for all types of crime, white collar crime, blue collar crime, gang related, whatever. So most families have had some experience with somebody being locked up, whether it's in prison or county or whatever. So it affects all of us, directly or indirectly. You may have a neighbor, if it's nobody in your family. You may have a distant relative or whatever. So it impacts on our society in a great way, a real impactful way. So whenever I get the opportunity to talk to someone that's willing to tell their story, I always open up the mic for that. Our guest today is Bernard K. Cooper, resident of Los Angeles, went away for 25 years for a crime that he did not commit. He is out on parole. His case is before the appellate court. He's trying to become a free man to remove this conviction from his life. And we pray that this will come to fruition. He's gone through a lot. He's been fighting on his own. And I believe that he really needs some professional help at this point to help him win this case at the appellate level, because this is the real deal. Now, let me ask you, if they rule against you, can you appeal it again, or is that it?
Well,
is it appealable again?
Well, no, I don't think it's appealable again. It would have to go to the United States Supreme Court.
Okay.
Because right now it's at the Court of Appeals, and then what the Court of Appeals would do is kick it back to the district court.
Okay.
To have them have a hearing.
Okay.
Then once they have a hearing, then they're going to determine what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So now, if they deny it, then I have no choice but to go to the California Supreme Court.
Okay.
Because under president, they supposed to, they supposed to have a hearing.
Okay.
Anytime somebody comes forth, time restraints are not supposed to be
to kick it out, right?
Right, to kick it out. That shouldn't be a reason. You're supposed to have a hearing to determine the value of what's being offered before you come to that decision.
Right.
But because it's me, they're blocking it just based on time timeliness. Period. They're not considering the fact that I have the evidence of who provided the evidence against me, plus 2 or 3 witnesses that I do not know coming forward saying that this is what was done to them as 13-year-old kids.
Right. That's crazy. We're live on Facebook, YouTube, and thepowerofvoices.com. If any of you, we only got about 10 minutes left in the show. If you have any questions for our guest, Bernard K. Cooper, you can put it into our Facebook page, and I'll read it off. Chris and Alpha are still online. Do you guys have any questions or comments at this point?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, I've been listening, and it's very engaging. I want to thank you, Mr. Bernard K. Cooper, for sharing your story with us. Very, very inspiring.
No, thank you.
My question is in, well, let me ask this question first. When you were incarcerated, when did you make your change? You mentioned during the conversation about you change your life around. When did you notice change in you, your metamorphosis? When did you notice that?
Well, I began to notice it after I assaulted another inmate with a weapon in 2002. And during that time, during the solitary confinement time that they gave me, is where I began to really think about how much I've transitioned in that world. You know, my violence had went from one way of violence to on these streets to that type of violence. So I think at that point right there, I realized that my life was out of control. So I had to figure out how I was going to, right that ship. Because it wasn't. I never wanted to hurt anybody. It's just,
right.
I came up in a time and I was bred to hate these particular people. I was misled to hate these particular people. When personal stuff happened to me, it was, to me, my actions was justified. However, when I entered prison and became that person, from that field and getting involved with the racial violence and personal violence is when I really had to look at things like, okay, I might, I'm out of control. And I think that's where the spark had started from, but it took a long time to really settle into that person. It's a lot of, because
Right.
you just can't do that overnight, not on no general
not at all.
population prison system.
How old are you now?
I'm 44.
If you can take your 44-year-old self, go back in time to your 18-year-old self, and say to him about, look, you already know the deal already because it's your life. What would you say to your 18-year-old self about to face prison, or find a way to prevent him from going in?
Well, actually, that's one of the questions on my Affiliates and Offenders Recovery Program. That I personally had to face too before I went to the parole board, and I would tell a young person, I would have told myself, man, to really look at the fine print of things, man. You know what I'm saying? Get all the information. Like what happens when I go to prison? What do I do when these police arrest me? What are the consequences? Like what happens? And because you don't get that, you don't get the fine print of things. They join you on the gang, and then you got to learn yourself. As opposed to when I came up, you were being led, because the era that I came up in, they were led by the era in the 60s, which was the Black Panther era, and so they still had those organizations. But I would tell a person to really get the information, man. Like ask questions. You already know you got people, you got your homeboys in prison and all that. Ask questions like why are they able to be in prison together like that? Like what's the deal with that? So that they can be explained, so that they can explain to them, that what you doing when you get there, you're gonna cut it off. You're not gonna do that. Your own homies is gonna kill you if you go in there with that. I know this. I did that. I mean, I was here. I've been there. So I say it was a waste of time to go in there knowing that what you're doing out here is going to lead you to this right here with and you're gonna be in there with the same people that you was doing this with.
Right.
So why have to wait 25 years for something that you already can know right now before you make that decision on what you're doing?
Exactly.
Or being a part of, or company, because we know what we doing. But the difference is from my generation and today's generation is that they on hard drugs.
Yeah.
These kids out here on hard drugs, so they don't even realize what's happening until they get into the county jail or juvenile facilities, and then they come up off the drugs and realize that you done shot all this stuff.
Yeah.
And ain't even killed none, but they telling you you're gonna get 180 years. So now the reality sets in, and now you calling for mama.
Yeah.
Now you calling mama now.
Right. that's so true.
Right, now you calling mom and daddy now,
Yeah.
because
Y'all
you don't
help
know what
me.
to do.
Right.
And I think that's the biggest disconnect that I see out here.
Crazy. Now there's I guess you call them former gang members, called the Homeboys Industry.
Homeboy Industries?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know about that.
Is there anybody doing anything like that? Now that's a Latino
That's a
organization.
Latino organization.
Right. Is anybody doing that for on the black side or the white side or whatever?
Well, you have different organizations that's ran by black that I'm seeing out here, but not nowhere near to the level that they were able to do.
Okay.
And I'm learning a lot from individuals from Homeboy Industries and different little places like that. To try to the people at Chuco's, and you got people that's doing some good things.
Right.
And those organizations they don't discriminate either. So you can't go there. You want to get your tattoos covered, so those places don't.
Oh, okay.
They are open.
Excellent.
But they're under what they're under.
Sure.
But there's nobody in the black community that's doing
anything
it to
like
that level what they're doing.
Okay.
But it's
Why not?
possible.
Okay.
Well, me personally, I don't know what is. I haven't been here.
Okay.
I just been studying people and everybody just I've been home before I even step out like this.
Sure.
So I've been looking at everything and everybody since I've been home. So
Trying to
I can
analyze
understand.
things. Sure.
Right, so I can. But that's how I've learned to be. That's how I got here.
Absolutely.
I got here through analyzing and studying studying the game.
Mm-hmm.
So but they doing some great things, and if I I don't know how they do theirs,
Right.
and it's a little tricky when you talk about the black community, is because we so bred it in hate. It's kind of tricky to try to hold events. To try to hold overall events because of the fear of what will happen when you mix these elements together. But I believe that through effective communication, that they can be built to something to that level.
Sure. One of the problems that I see when people come, when they get out of prison and then they get back into the real world and they don't know how to react or what to do next, especially if they've been away for a long time. Life changes out here in the streets. Forget about the gang stuff, but fashion, attitudes, politics, the food, everything is different. You go away for 25 years, you come back, man, what happened to the bell bottoms?
Right.
All the clothes that you have, well, you can't fit no more because you might have put on a little weight or lost some weight, but ain't nobody wearing those clothes no more. So, there's a transition is major.
Well, actually coming from where I come from, we wore a certain attire.
Right.
We wore a certain attire, with uniform, so to speak.
Right.
But you don't see that no more. And me, I've always told myself if I get out of prison, I want to be in suits and ties, man.
Sure.
That's pretty much and suspenders. That was what I wanted to do.
Look.
So that's why I wear them. I don't wear it today, but
Right.
that's normally why I do it, because I always told myself I would. But having come home, everything is different as far as the dress code, so you really don't know who's who. That's why I be so leery of LA, because I don't know you know, who's who. Back then, the street signs were all there.
Right.
You know, you had the writing on the walls and stuff. So all that is pretty clean now.
Right. Right.
So if you're not familiar with the life, then you won't even realize where you are because the players look different.
Right.
You know, from my era,
It's
of
disguised
things.
now.
They disguise now. So you know, so I'm scared to death.
Right.
Actually, like
Right.
you know, because I don't know who who's
Who's
who.
who.
So I pretty much stay to myself and try to maneuver through. You know, but I'm getting out now and starting you know, meet people and you know, mingle
Make
a
some
little
things
bit,
happen.
make some things happen, rub
Sure.
little elbows here and there, see, you know, just to see who you know, who's
Yeah.
who and who's what. Because like I said, I never had no father figure, no
Right.
nothing like that, or no big brothers outside of that world to be able to show me this is what you need to do. You need
Yeah.
to do this, you need to do that. So I'm pretty much navigating on how to pay bills and
Yeah.
you know, work, make sure you know, do what I'm supposed to do at work and all these things and so I'm navigating all that on my own, man, and
Yeah.
it's you know,
Is it scary?
it's not scary because the only thing that ever penetrate me, man, is my mother, man.
Yeah.
Like, so anything, you know, and I got the same mindset that I had in prison to get out. I had tunnel vision. During those last 5 years to get out of prison, I had tunnel vision. Like everything in between that,
Don't matter.
that doesn't matter. Like
Yeah.
I'm out here to play chess, not checkers, with my life.
There you go. I like that.
And the philosophy of that is that when you playing checkers, you can make 3 moves, bam, 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 bam. But as soon as you stop, soon as that piece stop
Yeah,
right there, what
right.
happens to that piece?
Yeah.
He gone.
He gets killed.
He gone. So all that he did doesn't even matter because he gone.
That's right.
He can't even reap the benefits for what he did.
Nope.
Whereas in chess, you really got to
That's
you
right.
know, move
You
your
gotta-
pieces. You
that's
got to
right.
really
Strategize.
know that piece has to do something.
That's right.
So-
And if
so-
I move there, then
He's
here
gonna-
are the consequences.
Here's the consequences
Yeah.
of what this
Don't
move is
go
going to
there.
do.
Yeah.
So I don't want to move that piece. And so, and you got to look at yourself as the most important piece. Like I had to really look at myself because I always put the gang in front of me.
Wow, time has run out on us. I want to stay in touch with you, and just know that if you have something special you need to get out to the public,
Yes.
know that you can call us and come back. And when it was it look like on the release date of the book? Is the book done?
Well, we're looking at we hoping to look at about December.
Okay,
You know, but yeah, we look, but it's moving.
good. Well, let us know when the book is ready to be released. We'll have you come back and talk about the release date. And in between, if something comes up between now and then, when do you expect to hear back from the court?
Well, that's what I'm told that there's no time restraints
could
on
be,
that.
Could be a year,
Could
could be
forever,
whatever.
you know.
Oh gosh.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I've had to just send in a request, but
Okay.
I just want to you know, tell everybody and the people on the streets, man, that, you know, I bid you peace, man. You know what I'm saying? 'Cause I know what war is.
Yeah.
I bid you peace.
Yeah. You know, I have a son that's 2 years older than you. So when I look at you, I'm thinking about my oldest boy who bears my name. So you're in my heart, man.
Thank you, man.
Okay? I love
Yeah,
what
thank
you're
you.
doing. I wish the best for you. And don't give up.
Right.
Surround yourself with people who know more than you and keep on fighting your struggle.
Right.
Thank you for coming in. Bernard K. Cooper.
Absolutely.
And we'll hear from you again, right?
Yeah,
You're
absolutely.
going to come back?
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. And be looking forward to my own show.
That's what I
All
thought.
right.
Absolutely.
Well, I like that in you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. God bless you. And thank you to all of our listeners that stuck with us today and listening to Bernard's story. Carol did a good job with us today, and Chris and Alfo, and we love you. Thank you for making this a show. Until the next time, tomorrow, 10 a.m. on thepowerofvoices.com. We be gone. Bye-bye. I'm not even going to play the music today. We're out.
All right. Bye.